Imagine, just for a second, sitting in a really sterile, brightly lit doctor's office.
Right.
The air conditioning is humming just, a little too loudly. And the synthetic leather of your skin.
Yeah, that's very specific, uncomfortable feeling.
Exactly. And the physician sitting across from you just hands over a single, and the synthetic leather of the examination chair is kind of sticking to your. Imagine, just for a second, sitting in a really sterile, brightly lit doctor's office.
Right.
The air conditioning is humming just, a little too loudly. And the synthetic leather of the examination chair is kind of sticking to your skin.
Yeah, that's very specific, uncomfortable feeling.
Exactly. And the physician sitting across from you just hands over a single piece of paper. And that piece of paper, it effectively redraws the entire map of your future.
And the future of someone you love deeply, too. It's completely overwhelming.
It really is. The immediate crushing question that hits you, it hits you like a physical weight in the chest is, well, how do you even begin to organize your life or your home or your own mind, really, to face a reality where the physical body is slowly shutting down?
Yeah, how do you curate an existence when the boundaries of what is possible just shrink every single day?
Exactly.
It is a profound existential crisis, and it's one that millions of families face without any sort of compass, really. The psychological shockwaves of a terminal, progressive diagnosis can completely paralyze a household.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Paralyzed is the right word.
And, the traditional medical establishment is exceptional at providing clinical literature. They outline symptom progression, prescribe symptom management medications, detail the mechanics of muscular atrophy.
And that literature rarely tells a family how to actually survive a random Tuesday afternoon.
Exactly. It doesn't explain how to preserve joy or how to maintain the architecture of a relationship when one person is becoming entirely physically dependent on the other.
Okay, let's unpack this because today we are immersing ourselves in a document that was built entirely to fill that exact void.
Yeah, we're definitely not looking at a peer-reviewed clinical trial full of p-values and double-blind control groups today.
No, not at all. We are diving into a deeply personal, remarkably grassroots manifesto. It's a 2026 update from a community called Healing MND India.
Authored by an individual named Pinakin Shah.
Right. And before we get into the heavy lifting of this text, we really have to establish the foundational terminology that the author uses, like constantly, because it frames the entire relationship we are going to explore.
The terminology is so crucial for understanding the dynamic here. The text relies on two distinct acronyms. The first is ALS, which stands for Patients Diagnosed with ALS.
Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, right?
Right.
Or MND, motor neuron disease.
Exactly. And the second is CALS, which stands for Caregivers or Caretakers.
PALS and CALs.
Yeah. And by creating these two distinct yet inextricably linked categories, the text immediately acknowledges that the disease doesn't just happen to the patient, it happens to the caregiver too.
Right. The CLS and the PALS are locked in this the symbiotic struggle.
You really are.
And the framework we are looking at in this deep dive treats that symbiosis with absolute reverence. It treats the mind, the living environment, and the human spirit just as aggressively as traditional medicine treats physical symptoms.
Pinakin Shah is offering a highly active, almost militant campaign for creating quality of life here.
Yeah, militant is a good word for it. This isn't a guide on how to surrender gracefully to an inevitable decline.
Not at all. It's a roadmap asking the caregiver, the CALS, to become the architect of a completely new, meticulously curated reality for the patient.
And what's fascinating here is how that architecture actually begins. Like, the author doesn't start by telling the caregiver to purchase specific hospital beds or specialized feeding equipment.
Right. The very first mandate of this manifesto centers entirely on the invisible environment of the home, the psychological atmosphere.
Yes. The very first point the author makes is something that made me stop in my tracks because of the sheer force of the language.
It's intense.
It really is. The text demands that the caregiver must, quote, remove everything which is negative, even the thoughts.
Wow.
I know. It advocates for bringing in absolute positivity, stating plainly that the less the palace thinks about this disease, the more beneficial it is to their health. The instruction is to bring total harmony into the relationship.
So the author is treating the psychological environment as a literal medical intervention.
Yeah.
This moves far beyond the modern, somewhat diluted concept of just, good vibes. The text explicitly links the absence of negative thought, the active, deliberate act of not allowing the mind to dwell on the pathology of the disease, to tangible physical health benefits.
It positions the mind as the primary battlefield.
Exactly. suggesting that the physiological environment is entirely dependent on the psychological one.
But, okay, if you put yourself in the shoes of a caregiver, right? I look at that instruction, remove even the thoughts, and it feels like trying to build an industrial clean room in your living room.
Oh, totally.
You know those manufacturing labs with positive pressure systems and airlocks? The ones designed to keep even a single microscopic speck of dust away from a silicon wafer.
Yes, the hypersterile environment.
Right. Here, the caregiver is being asked to build an emotional clean room. You have to scrub the emotional air constantly.
Which is an incredible burden.
It is. If you are the CLS and you are exhausted, terrified, financially strained, and grieving the life you used to have, how do you stop a negative thought from entering your own mind, let alone the room?
It sounds impossible.
Doesn't this run the terrifying risk of toxic positivity, where we just like paste a smile over profound suffering?
Well, if we look at the biological mechanisms of stress, the author's extreme demand begins to make clinical sense, even if it seems emotionally impossible at first glance.
Really? How so?
When a human being experiences fear, panic, or despair, the body initiates a sympathetic nervous system response. Cortisol floods the system, adrenaline spikes, and systemic inflammation increases.
Ah, okay. The fight or flight response.
Exactly. And in a neurodegenerative disease like MND, inflammation is like pouring gasoline on a fire. The disease is already attacking the motor neurons.
Right.
So if the caregiver brings unfiltered anxiety into the room, the patient, who is highly vulnerable and hyper observant to their caregiver, absorbs that resonance.
Wow. The patient basically becomes a tuning fork for the caregiver's hidden panic.
That's a perfect way to put it, yes.
So the requirement to remove negative thoughts isn't about ignoring the tragic reality of the disease.
No, not at all. It's
Yeah.
about creating a biological shield. The caregiver is acting as a buffer, preventing the physiological cascade of stress hormones from accelerating the physical deterioration.
Okay, that makes so much more sense. It's a protective measure.
It is. And achieving that requires a deliberate tuning of the environment, which the text calls harmony.
Harmony.
And harmony doesn't mean a lack of complex chords, It means all the instruments are playing in the same key. The text provides incredibly vivid, highly specific strategies for generating this harmony, rather than just demanding it in the abstract.
Yeah, and the strategy that jumped off the page for me was the instruction to involve little kids.
Oh, that part is so fascinating.
The text explicitly tells the caregiver to invite little kids into the house, to enact plays, to dance, and to tell stories. I was really trying to visualize this.
It's quite a scene to picture.
Right. You have a room with medical equipment, perhaps a wheelchair, maybe an oxygen concentrator humming in the corner. And suddenly, there is a 5-year-old performing a chaotic, joyful, completely unscripted play in the middle of it.
That juxtaposition is the entire point, I think. A child enacting a play represents unfiltered, unself-conscious joy.
Yeah, pure chaos in the best way.
Exactly. It acts as a profound pattern interrupt. When a family is dealing with a severe chronic illness, the daily routine becomes incredibly rigid. It's dictated by medication schedules, physical therapy intervals, and feeding times.
Everything is scheduled down to the minute.
Right. The environment becomes institutionalized. So bringing a dancing child into that space forcefully normalizes the environment.
It reminds the patient that life, in all its messy, silly, vibrant glory, is still happening right in front of them. It shatters the illusion that the entire universe has been reduced to the boundaries of their medical chart.
Yes. And there is a crucial follow-up sentence to that instruction that we can't miss.
Oh, what is it?
After telling the CALS to let the kids enact plays and dance, the author adds a separate specific command. Appreciate them also.
Appreciate them also. Wow, that tiny phrase carries so much weight.
It really does.
Because if you are a completely burned out caregiver, a noisy kid running around the house might just feel like one more chaotic thing to manage, one more headache.
The author totally recognizes that trap. This instruction highlights the comprehensive nature of the caregiver's role in this framework.
How so?
Well, the CALS is cultivating a culture of gratitude for the entire household ecosystem. The caregiver must actively participate in the joy.
Oh, I see.
If the CALS just sits in the corner, stressed out, checking their watch while the child dances, the harmony is broken. The patient will see the caregiver's stress and feel guilty for the disruption.
Right, because they are that tuning fork we talked about.
Exactly. By demanding that the caregiver appreciate them also, the text forces the CLS to anchor themselves in the present moment. They must applaud. They must validate the child's joy.
And that positive reinforcement creates a feedback loop of warmth that envelops the patient.
Precisely.
It's the difference between being a stressed out event planner pacing the perimeter of the room and actually joining the party you threw.
That is a brilliant analogy. Yeah.
You have to embody the joy you are trying to provide. And, this concept of curating experiences transitions us beautifully into the next major philosophy of the text.
Right. The approach to maintaining the patient's identity.
Yeah, it requires incredible emotional intelligence. We could call it the art of the tweak.
The art of the tweak. I like that. This is where the profound empathy required by the caregiver becomes highly intricate and, frankly, quite demanding.
It is. The text establishes a fierce, uncompromising premise. The caregiver must remember that the cacal's mind is no way affected by this disease.
And that is such a devastating reality of ALS. It's devastating precisely because it traps a perfectly healthy, functioning, dreaming, calculating mind inside a physical vessel that is losing its structural integrity.
The inner world remains vast while the outer mobility shrinks.
Exactly. Because of this cruel dichotomy, the text instructs the caregiver to become a student of the patient's past.
It says check out what their dreams were before MND, and then try to accomplish whatever you can. But the operative phrase, the absolute key to this entire section is tweak a little to fulfill your dreams.
That phrase, tweak a little, is an absolute masterclass in adaptive living.
It really is. It acknowledges the physical limitations imposed by the disease without surrendering the psychological desire.
Right. If the caregiver focuses only on what is physically impossible, despair sets in immediately. The tweak is an exercise in lateral thinking.
It requires the CALS to be fiercely observant, right? The text advises engaging with the patient's favorite movies, actors, songs, sports, and foods. You have to figure out the core essence of what brought them joy and then engineer a completely new delivery mechanism.
Engineer a new delivery mechanism, yes. Give me an example of how you see that working.
Well, say a patient's pre-MND dream was to go camping in the wilderness. The physical reality of the disease might make sleeping on the ground impossible.
Right, the disease says no.
Exactly. But the tweak says, okay, we can't hike into the woods, but we can rent a cabin with a massive glass window facing the forest.
Oh, I love that.
We can build a fire in the hearth. We can play the sounds of the local wildlife on a speaker, and we can cook the exact same meals we would have made over a campfire. You preserve the emotional core of the dream while radically altering the logistics.
That is beautiful. And that iterative process of tweaking requires constant recalibration, too. The text explicitly states that the CLS and pals can make out which things are working and which are not. Based on that, try to make your pals as cheerful as possible.
So it frames caregiving not as a static duty, but as an ongoing experiment in joy.
Exactly. If the forest sounds cause sensory overload today, you tweak the tweak. You pivot.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The text dives into the concept of playing games with the patient, but it gives a very specific, almost subversive instruction.
Yes, the game instruction.
It says try to play games in which she always wins. Let them win unknowingly.
That is a staggering piece of advice. It has such deep psychological ramifications.
I kept visualizing this dynamic. It's like being a backstage crew member at a major theater production.
Okay, tell me more.
You're up in the dark rafters, adjusting the spotlights. You are quietly moving the heavy props. You are managing the trapdoors. All so the star of the show can stand center stage and give a flawless, triumphant performance without ever seeing the stagehands sweating in the background. The caregiver is engineering a triumph.
That is a profound way to look at it, because the constant, unrelenting daily experience of someone with advancing MND is a series of physical defeats.
Defeat after defeat.
Yes. You lose the ability to button a shirt, then the ability to hold a fork, then perhaps the ability to vocalize your thoughts. Agency is stripped away incrementally. The patient is constantly losing to their own biology.
So when a caregiver sits down to play a game, whether it's chess, a trivia game, or a simple card game, and they manipulate the outcome so the patient wins, they are providing a critical counter-narrative to that daily defeat.
They're delivering a vital neurological reward. A victory, even in a simple game, triggers the release of dopamine and serotonin.
It's chemical relief.
Exactly. It provides the psychological experience of outsmarting an opponent, of exerting influence over an outcome, of having agency. The author vigorously defends the sovereignty of the mind here.
But the absolute necessity here is the word unknowingly.
Yes, let them win unknowingly. That is critical.
Because if the patient realizes you are throwing the game, the victory instantly turns to ashes. It becomes an act of pity.
And pity is corrosive to human dignity.
It really is.
If they win unknowingly, it is a genuine triumph. The physical body may be failing, but the caregiver is quietly adjusting the parameters of reality to allow the patient's mind to remain a conqueror.
It is an act of profound, exhausting love to constantly curate these hidden victories.
Absolutely exhausting.
And the text makes sure this curation isn't relegated to the shadows either. It issues a direct command. Celebrate every happy occasion in the house with Hisher involvement.
It's a mandate against the marginalization of the sick person.
Yeah, because when someone is severely ill, society has this underlying tendency to let them rest in a quiet, dark room while the noisy, chaotic life events happen in another part of the house.
The birthday parties, the anniversaries, the holidays.
Right, they get separated from the joy.
And that separation is a form of social death that often precedes physical death. The author of this text is fiercely opposed to that kind of isolation.
Involvement is non-negotiable.
Completely. Even if the patient cannot speak, even if they require a ventilator, their physical presence at the center of the family's happy occasions is vital.
It reinforces their identity as a living, breathing, valued member of the family unit, rather than a medical subject to be managed away from the public eye.
It brings them back to life socially.
And this insistence on breaking down the boundaries of the sick room bridges us perfectly to the next major offensive in this manifesto. If we've spent time looking at how to curate the psychological environment and tweak the internal emotional landscape, the text then takes a sledgehammer to the physical confinement of the patient's world.
Yes, the author is highly specific and quite demanding about pushing back against physical boundaries.
The text reads, travel to beaches, hill stations. Don't restrict yourself to confined, closed rooms.
That is a bold instruction.
I have to pause on this because if you are listening to this right now and feeling overwhelmed by your own daily commute or running errands, imagine the sheer terror of that instruction for an MND caregiver.
Oh, it's a logistical mountain.
Anyone who has cared for someone with advanced mobility issues, let alone a complex neurodegenerative disease that may require respiratory support, feeding tubes, and specialized hoists, they know that the word travel is a nightmare.
Just getting down the stairs can be a 2-hour ordeal.
Right. Going to a beach where a wheelchair will sink into the sand, or traveling to a hill station with unpredictable infrastructure. The effort required to execute that is astronomical.
It's a monumental undertaking, and the fact that the author insists upon it reveals a core tenet of their value system.
What's that?
The text is making a calculated argument. The spiritual and emotional payoff of feeling the wind at a higher altitude or seeing the limitless crashing horizon of an ocean vastly outweighs the grueling physical friction of getting there.
Wow.
The sensory deprivation of confined, closed room is viewed as a far more dangerous enemy than the logistical hurdles of a road trip.
It's about breaking the visual of the four walls. When you are staring at the same ceiling day after day, your world shrinks to the size of your bed.
Exactly. Taking someone to the ocean forcefully reminds them that the world is still vast and they are still a part of it.
But the author is realistic, right? They immediately follow this up with another strategy, one designed for the days when travel is genuinely impossible.
Yes. If you cannot take the patient to the outside world, you must bring the wild, beating heart of the outside world to the patient.
The text suggests bringing an animal into the home. It specifically says getting a pet like a dog or cat or even birds uncaged may help reduce loneliness and increase compassion and love in the PALA and CLS life.
Before we analyze the specific animals mentioned, we really have to look at the phrasing there. The author is intensely focused on the reduction of loneliness.
Illness is profoundly isolating.
It is, not just for the patient, but for the caregiver too. A pet introduces a third nonverbal presence into the dynamic.
Right. A dog resting its heavy head on a patient's lap, or a cat purring on the caregiver's chest at 3 a.m. when the exhaustion is unbearable.
It provides a type of grounding, uncomplicated love that human interactions, which are laden with grief and anxiety, sometimes just cannot provide.
That's so true. And right after this poignant observation about love and compassion, the author injects a moment of totally unexpected humor.
Oh, the crocodile line. I love this part.
Right. They add a parenthetical note. Please try to avoid dangerous animals for e.g. crocodiles, etc., followed by a winking emoji.
It's such a disarming, brilliant moment of levity in the middle of a heavy medical manifesto.
It really is. Why do you think they included that?
Well, humor is a phenomenal coping mechanism. It instantly deflates the tension. By dropping a joke about a crocodile into a guide about neurodegenerative care, the author reminds the reader that they are not some stern, unfeeling guru lecturing from a mountaintop.
They are a real human being.
Exactly. A human who understands the absurdity, the dark comedy, and the heavy reality of the situation. It builds immense trust with the reader.
But looking past the crocodile joke, I kept staring at that word uncaged in parentheses right next to the suggestion of getting birds.
Ah, yes. Uncaged.
It feels so intentional. Why the specific, deliberate mention of uncaged birds? It seems like an incredibly specific detail for a practical caregiving guide.
If we connect this to the broader reality of what ALS does to a human body, the uncaged bird becomes an intentional, heartbreakingly beautiful metaphor.
Because the physical body becomes the cage.
Precisely. The muscles lock down, the vocal cords freeze, the limbs become unresponsive. But the bird remains intensely alive, fluttering, desperate to fly and engage with the world.
Oh, wow.
By insisting that a pet bird must remain uncaged in the environment, the caregiver is providing a daily visual representation of freedom.
It is a constant, subtle reminder that life, energy, and the human spirit should not be caged by a failing body, just as the patient themselves should not be caged in a confined room. It's deeply poetic, and it requires a level of communication between the patient and caregiver to manage all of this: the travel, the pets, the emotional environment.
Yes, which is why the text emphasizes communication so forcefully.
It puts this in all capital letters. Communication between the pals and cows is the key. But the sentence doesn't stop with the patient's needs. It says, try to understand the pals as well as DLS issues and concerns.
That addition, as well as CLS issues and concerns, is a critical piece of the puzzle. It formally acknowledges that the caregiver is also a human being undergoing a massive, enduring trauma.
They aren't just a robot executing tasks.
Right. The caregiving dynamic is not a one-way street where the CLS acts as an infinite well of support while absorbing all the shock. There must be mutual understanding.
Even if the patient's ability to communicate is compromised and relies on eye tracking technology or spelling boards.
Exactly. Because if the caregiver is hiding all of their own financial fears, their physical pain from lifting the patient, or their profound grief, just to maintain that clean room of positivity we talked about earlier, the harmony becomes brittle.
It becomes a performance.
Yes, real harmony requires open, empathetic communication about the struggles both individuals are facing.
And what's truly remarkable about this document is that the author, Pinnick Shaw, doesn't just offer this advice into the void and walk away.
No, they don't.
The text includes an astonishing personal offer. It says, if needed, I can do video call with him or chat whenever needed. The author actually provides their direct phone number at the top and bottom of the manifesto.
That is just incredible.
It blew my mind. To publish a guide like this and say, call me, I will video chat with you. That is the creation of a shadow support network.
It proves to the isolated caregiver that nobody has to navigate this entirely in a vacuum.
Right, because the modern medical establishment, despite its advancements, can often feel cold, bureaucratic, and institutional.
It can. By offering a direct line for a video call, the author is providing peer-to-peer solidarity. It's the equivalent of someone saying, I have walked through this exact fire, I know exactly how hot it is, and I am standing right here to hold your hand if you feel like you are starting to burn.
It's the absolute pinnacle of grassroots caregiving.
It really is.
Now, keeping that concept of a vast support network in mind, this text takes a massive pivot in the next section.
A very necessary pivot.
We transition from psychological environments, uncaged birds, and emotional harmony to what I can only describe as a kitchen sink arsenal of therapies. The source lists an enormous, almost dizzying array of interventions.
It is a profound, entirely unfiltered synthesis of Eastern, Western dietary, and alternative modalities.
Unfiltered is the perfect word.
The author refuses to leave any stone unturned in the pursuit of healing.
Let's look at the sheer breadth of this approach, because it requires the caregiver to become a polymath of health. First, you have the hard physical and medical realities.
Right.
The text lists physiotherapy, speech therapy exercises, swallowing therapy treatment, occupational therapy, and the use of assistive devices wherever necessary.
These represent the standard critical Western medical interventions for managing MND.
Like the baseline stuff.
Exactly. Physiotherapy attempts to keep joints mobile and prevent painful contractures as muscles atrophy. Speech therapy provides strategies for communication as vocal cords weaken.
And swallowing therapy.
Swallowing therapy, managing dysphagia, is quite literally a matter of life and death to prevent aspiration pneumonia. These are the mechanical interventions designed to keep the physical machine functioning for as long as possible.
But right alongside those mechanical interventions, without skipping a beat, the text dives into dietary and internal interventions.
Yes, it lists sattvic bhojan, anti-inflammatory foods, curcumin, focusing on gut health, supplements, antioxidants, and detox.
This represents a vital shift in perspective, viewing the body not just as a machine with failing parts, but as a systemic, interconnected ecosystem.
Rather than just treating the symptom of muscle loss, the focus moves to reducing overall systemic inflammation.
And neurological science increasingly points to neuroinflammation as a major aggravator in degenerative diseases, right?
It does. So, suggesting curcumin, which is the active compound in turmeric, isn't just a folk remedy. It's an attempt to utilize a powerful natural anti inflammatory agent.
And the focus on gut health taps right into the emerging science of the gut brain axis.
It's exactly. The inclusion of sattvic bhojan is particularly interesting. In yogic philosophy, a sattvic diet is one that is pure, vegetarian, easily digestible, and designed to promote a calm, clear mind.
It avoids overly spicy, heavy, or processed foods.
Yes, the author is suggesting that the energy required to digest heavy food is energy stolen from the body's healing and maintenance processes.
Which makes sense, but again, think of the caregiver.
Oh, the workload.
You are already managing complex swallowing therapies, perhaps preparing specialized puree consistencies so the patient doesn't choke. And now you are tasked with sourcing and preparing spiritually pure, anti inflammatory, antioxidant rich meals. The labor is immense.
It is immense, but the arsenal doesn't stop at the diet.
No, it doesn't. The text then moves into an expansive list of vibrational and alternative
And
therapies.
this list is massive.
It includes yoga, pranayam, annulam vilam, OM chanting, AUM chanting, mantra chanting, music healing therapy, Dr. Lodge Portray Mera's neurotherapy, essential oils, naturopathy, homeopathy, acupressure, and acupuncture.
By including these modalities, the author is treating the body as an energetic or vibrational entity, moving beyond both the mechanical and the biochemical.
Give me an example of how that works in practice.
Well, consider annulum vilum, which is alternate nostril breathing. The physiological goal of this yogic practice is to balance the nervous system, pulling the body out of a sympathetic fight or flight stress response and anchoring it in a parasympathetic rest and digest state.
Even if a patient with advanced MND cannot physically perform the breathing exercises due to diaphragm weakness, the text suggests the caregiver can practice it, right?
Yes, or the patient can engage in the vibrational resonance of OM and mantra chanting.
And then, layered on top of all of this, the text lists mental and spiritual practices:
Mm.
guided meditation, positive affirmations, visualization, manifestation, vision board, forgiveness and gratitude, and Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono is a fascinating inclusion.
What is that exactly?
It is an ancient Hawaiian practice of reconciliation and forgiveness. It translates to make right. The practice involves a mantra of repetition. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you.
So, what does this all mean for the daily reality of the CLS? When I look at this entirely integrated, massive list of therapies, I am genuinely staggered.
It's a lot to take in.
If I am the caregiver, my head is spinning. How on earth do you fit a Hawaiian forgiveness ritual and an acupuncture session in between the rigorous demands of swallowing therapy and preparing a sattvic meal?
It feels like a full-time job for a specialized medical team of 10 people.
And it's all being placed on the shoulders of one stressed family member.
That reaction, the overwhelm, the feeling of an impossible daily itinerary is completely natural. But if we look closely at the framing of the text, the author isn't presenting this as a mandatory checklist where failure to complete every task results in a failing grade.
They aren't.
No, the author explicitly says ELS should think out of the box to resolve the problem issues. This list is fundamentally a menu of hope.
A menu of hope. I love that framing.
Think about the typical experience with a terminal progressive diagnosis in a standard clinical setting. Eventually, a doctor will look at the family and say, there is nothing more we can do mechanically. We will now focus purely on comfort care.
And for many people, that statement is a psychological death sentence.
It strips away all agency from the family. What Pinnakin-Shaw has done here is present a buffet of agency.
So if the physical body is uncooperative today and swallowing therapy is causing too much distress and coughing, you don't just throw your hands up and surrender to the disease.
No, you pivot. You look at the menu, you say, okay, physical therapy is off the table today. Let's listen to music healing therapy. Let's do a guided meditation.
Precisely. If the cellular reality of the disease presents a roadblock, you attack it on a vibrational level. If the environment is tense and the caregiver is feeling resentful, which is incredibly common and perfectly human, you practice Hopopono to clear the emotional air. The author deliberately places hard, practical realities like assistive devices right next to esoteric practices like manifestation.
There is absolutely no division in this philosophy between the gut, the muscles, and the soul. They are seen as equal overlapping tools in the healing arsenal.
And to be clear, we aren't here to dissect the clinical, peer-reviewed efficacy of a vision board in treating motor neuron disease.
Right.
What we're doing is recognizing how the author views these tools as a completely unified, holistic web of support designed to keep the family moving forward.
By providing this massive list, the author ensures that the caregiver is never left empty-handed. You're never sitting in the dark wondering what to do next.
Action, even if it is alternative, spiritual action keeps hope alive and fights off the paralysis of despair.
Yep.
But just as the text lifts the reader up with this immense, empowering menu of hope, it takes a sharp, undeniable turn. Section 5 of this manifesto represents a serious tonal shift.
It does. The author drops 3 massive, incredibly harsh reality checks on the caregiver.
It's where the esoteric meets the brutal friction of reality.
The author is fundamentally practical. They understand that chanting mantras and building vision boards, while spiritually nourishing, do not erase the exhausting reality of navigating a severe illness within the modern world.
Exactly. So, reality check number 1 is a direct confrontation with the medical establishment. The text states boldly, doctors are good until they start playing God Day.
Wow.
It goes on to advise, in emergency, these good doctors are going to be helpful, so act tactfully.
This statement raises a vital question about the balance of power and the ownership of hope in medical care.
It is a fiercely defiant statement.
It is. The text is actively warning the CALS to retain their ultimate authority over the trajectory of the healing journey.
Because in many healthcare systems across the globe, doctors are treated with a level of deference that borders on the religious.
Exactly. Their word, particularly regarding a prognosis, is treated as absolute, infallible law.
The author is warning caregivers not to surrender their own intuition, their intimate minute-by-minute knowledge of the patient, to a physician who may only review a chart and see the patient for 15 minutes every 3 months.
It views doctors as highly skilled emergency consultants rather than the undisputed architects of the patient's entire existence.
And the phrase act tactfully is a highly strategic, almost political piece of advice, isn't it?
It means the caregiver must navigate the medical system intelligently. You use the system for what it excels at: acute crises, managing oxygen levels, prescribing necessary medications, providing medical documentation.
But you do not let a physician who plays Jagai extinguish your hope or dictate the emotional limits of your life.
You manage the medical relationship. You don't let it manage you.
It is empowering, but it also means you are fighting on multiple fronts. You are fighting the disease, and you are guarding the gates against medical pessimism.
That's a heavy load to bear.
Now, reality check number 2 is something the author literally labels as the twister. And it truly is a twister because it completely upends some of the beautiful, accommodating advice we discussed earlier.
Oh, the tantrum advice.
The text states in bold letters, twister. Don't always give in to the palaz demands and tantrums.
This is where we see the excruciating tightrope walk of profound caregiving.
When I read this, I had this jarring cognitive dissonance. Wait, earlier we were explicitly told to let them win games unknowingly, to tweak the entire physical world to fulfill their dreams,
Yeah.
to orchestrate plays for their amusement.
Right.
But now we are being told not to give in to demands and tantrums. It's like being asked to be the ultimate, endlessly accommodating cheerleader and the strict, unyielding referee at the exact same moment.
It is the central paradox of this kind of care. And this is exactly where we have to revisit the concept of harmony that was the foundation of the very first point.
Okay, how does harmony play into this?
Well, if a caregiver, operating out of a profound sense of guilt, grief, or pity, gives in to every single demand and absorbs every emotional outburst, the harmony of the house is instantly destroyed.
Because the caregiver will become a martyr. They will burn out, become deeply resentful, or become completely physically and emotionally depleted.
Exactly. True compassion, sustainable compassion, sometimes requires rigid boundaries.
We also have to view this through a neurological lens, don't we?
Yes. Depending on the specific presentation of the MND, or simply due to the sheer unimaginable psychological trauma of losing one's physical autonomy, patients can experience extreme emotional lability.
They can become deeply frustrated, and yes, they can throw tantrums.
The author, having lived in these trenches, knows that if the CLS becomes a doormat, the entire caregiving structure collapses.
You cannot pour water from an empty cup.
Setting a boundary against a tantrum is actually an act of preserving the long-term stability of the patient's environment.
You let them win the chess game to preserve their dignity and provide a sense of agency, but you do not let them verbally abuse the caregiver because that destroys the harmony required to keep the disease at bay.
It's the incredibly difficult distinction between preserving dignity and enabling toxicity.
And navigating that distinction leads directly to the third and final harsh reality in this manifesto, which I believe is the heaviest burden of all.
It's a daunting one.
After giving all this advice, the author writes, basically, now the baton is in your hands. You have to win this race. I can only show you the path, but walking on the healing path, you have to do.
And then the closer.
And then the ultimate terrifying reality check. The only person who can stop you from healing is you.
That single sentence is the absolute crux of the entire document.
It's terrifying to look at an exhausted, tearful caregiver who has been up all night managing a feeding tube and say, the baton is in your hands, you have to win. The only person who can stop you is you.
It places a massive, almost cosmic weight of responsibility squarely on the shoulders of the CALS.
It really does.
It is the ultimate expression of empowerment, but it comes with a tremendous, uncompromising burden of accountability.
The author is systematically stripping away all the excuses a family might use to surrender.
You cannot blame the doctors playing God. You cannot blame the lack of perfect resources. You cannot sit around waiting for a miraculous savior to fix the daily reality.
The author is saying, I have given you the entire blueprint. I have given you the environmental changes, the psychological tweaks, the massive list of alternative therapies, and the boundaries, but I cannot walk the path for you.
It's a call to absolute radical accountability. It explores that excruciating tension between total surrender to the grueling process of caregiving and maintaining the fierce active agency required to keep the structural integrity of a home intact.
You have to accept the medical reality of the disease, but you must radically, violently reject the despair that usually accompanies it.
And that radical rejection of despair leads us perfectly to the final synthesis of this document. We must look at the mantras the author leaves the reader with at the very end of the text.
Yes, let's look at those closing thoughts. The text ends with a powerful phrase in Hindi. Kal kisne dekha hai, aaj bar ka jiyo.
Beautiful phrase.
The text provides the translation essentially as, who has seen tomorrow live for today?
That phrase is the ultimate distillation of this entire deep dive. When you are dealing with a progressive neurodegenerative disease, looking at tomorrow is an exercise in terror.
Because tomorrow inherently means more loss.
Yes, tomorrow means more muscle decline, more complications, more grief. If the caregiver or the patient lives in tomorrow, they are living in a nightmare.
So the only safe harbor, the only place where joy, agency, uncaged birds, and harmony can actually exist is strictly in the present moment, today. Aji Barkajio. Live fully today. It connects so viscerally to the final 3 lines of the manifesto, which are written like a desperate, defiant battle cry. Never ever lose hope. Never surrender. Never give up. Because this text ultimately is not just a manual for managing a physical decline, it is an aggressive, relentless, holistic campaign for life.
It redefines what it means to fight a terminal illness.
The fight isn't just about managing breathing tubes, heart rates, and medications.
No, the real fight is about laughing at a child's impromptu play in the middle of a sick room. It's about tweaking a broken dream so the essence of it can still be tasted.
It's about feeling the breeze of an uncaged bird and maintaining the absolute sovereignty of the human mind against a failing body.
Perfectly said.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to connect this directly back to you listening right now. Because while this incredibly powerful, moving document from Healing MND India was written specifically for the crucible of ALS and motor neuron disease, the core principles we've unpacked today are profoundly universal.
The mechanics of survival outlined here apply to any immense challenge a human being might face.
If you are facing a health crisis of your own, a massive career failure, a crushing personal loss, or just a period of deep, suffocating darkness, the philosophies of Pinnock and Shaw apply to you.
The absolute necessity of adapting and tweaking your broken dreams rather than abandoning them entirely.
The rigorous, almost aggressive fight against toxic negativity in your own internal environment.
The willingness to think wildly out of the box to solve your problems, utilizing every single tool, physical, mental, and spiritual, at your disposal.
And the fierce, uncompromising mandate to live fully in today because tomorrow is completely unwritten.
It is a masterclass in human resilience. The tools are all there on the table, but as the author reminds us, the baton is in your hands.
Which leaves us with one final lingering idea for you to mull over as we close.
Okay, what is it?
The text explicitly tells us that the only person who can stop you from healing is you. But considering everything we've discussed, the progressive, incurable nature of the disease, the undeniable reality of the physical decline, what if healing in this context doesn't necessarily mean a physical cure?
Wow, that is the ultimate paradigm shift.
Right. What if true healing isn't the x-ray showing the broken bone is fused or the nervous system miraculously repairing itself?
What if, in the deepest, most profound sense of the human experience, true healing is the ability to find unadulterated joy in a tweak's dream?
What if healing is finding absolute peace in the metaphor of an uncaged bird?
What if healing is simply achieving total resonant harmony in the present moment, sitting in a room with someone you love, perfectly content no matter what tomorrow holds?
We want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and a reminder that the original source for today's exploration was a grassroots manifesto by Pina Shaw, who encourages anyone navigating these turbulent waters to engage with the healing MND India community. Until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of your environment.
Thank you all for watching the video. You can contact me on the given number. You can send me a WhatsApp message. Either you can contact me on Facebook. You can connect with me on Instagram, or you can directly WhatsApp me or call me on the given phone number. If you like the video, if you find any resemblance of the video, kindly subscribe, like, comment, and share the video with whoever you feel suitable. By the way, before ending the session, I would like to tell you I am personally diagnosed with ALS MND. I have completed 9 years and 3 months, or 9 years and 3 months since my first symptoms started. I was officially diagnosed on October 15, 2018, and I've, I'm, I've improved my breathing, I've improved my speech, I've improved my swallowing, I've also improved on my weight. I'm gaining weight right now. I'm reduce circulation and twitching in my body. And I'm very positive that I'm going to match or break Stephen Hawking's record of 55 years. So I'm here to help in whatever way possible. I'm always there for you. Thank you all for watching the video, and kindly please subscribe, like, share and comment below the video. Thank you all. Have a good and a great day ahead.